Nation of Fitin10, it is day 9, and yesterday I sent you your macros and of course your updated heart rate numbers, your cardio numbers, so make sure you look at that. Also note the interval time changed to 20 seconds, so your intervals are a bit longer. You're also doing 7 intervals this week. For the majority of you, your macros did not change. Virtually all of you, your macros did not change. Next week they will change. People are asking when are they going to change. Next week for the majority of you they will change. Okay, so anybody who didn't get a change this week will get a change next week. And remember that it's more about being consistent with these numbers than really these small changes that I make. Yes, the small changes make a difference. Of course they do. But as you'll see from beginning to end, there's not going to be a massive change from start to finish. Okay, there will be some change and it will make a difference. But ultimately it's about being really consistent with this calorie intake. And yes, the types of calories do matter, of course. Speaking of which, yesterday I talked a little bit about carbohydrates and why they're important. And they do get a bad name for weight gain and obesity. And that's just generally because they're very easy to eat, they're non-satiating, and they are often large fillers in very tasty and delectable foods that we eat. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have them, and that doesn't mean we can't have them when we're trying to lose body fat. So here are some more reasons why you want to keep some carbohydrates in your diet. Number 4. So again, this is leading off from yesterday. I went through 3 reasons. This is number 4. Okay, the first three reasons were thyroid health, they're protein sparing, and they are generally speaking the most calorie sparse foods. Number 4, variety. When you look at the spectrum of carbohydrates, we get a huge variety, whether we're looking at starches or we're looking at fibers or we're looking at specifically sugars like fruits. We've got a large spectrum of different kinds of foods and a lot of choice within that. And this is really, really important for sustainability, having some variety. Number 6, well, the thermic effect of these is not high. It's about 6 to 8%, somewhere in that range, depending on the food. It is still 6 to 8%. So that is, we're looking at about 6 to 8% of the energy in carbohydrates being utilized against its digestion. So if you ate 100 calories worth of, let's say you had an average apple, somewhere around 100 calories, you're looking at about 90, 94, 92 of those calories actually you're looking at 6 to 8 of those calories being utilized for its digestion or against the digestion of that apple. Number 7, phytonutrients. All right, phytonutrients. What about things like, so let's be more specific here about phytonutrients. We've got things like vitamins and minerals, but also phytonutrients. Things like resveratrol, which you may have heard of, or lycopene, or lutein, or isoflavonoids. And there's a whole list of these. Now, if you're really into this, you may have heard that these are anti-nutrients, that these can also be highly allergy starting for some people, or more specifically can affect the immune system of some people in a negative fashion. And this may or may not be true. Well, it is true for some people. This can be applied to any foods, really. So, we just have to find what works for us. What are the foods we can eat? What are the carbohydrates that we're okay with, that don't seem to bother us? Some of you might be okay with gluten. Some of us may not be. Sometimes it's even just the amount of something that we're having. So the amount of gluten, for instance. But the point is, we do get a lot of nutrition that we cannot get from animal sources in plant sources. Number 8, I already mentioned this, I touched upon this, fiber. The only place you're going to get fiber is from carbohydrate sources. Well, fiber is in and of itself a carbohydrate. So really that's the only place you're going to get it. So there are some people that argue that fiber is non-essential, and that is a whole another debate, but I think most of us can agree that without fiber in our diet, we might encounter some issues which we don't need to talk about, right? Okay, let's get the message of the day. And believe me, there's other reasons to eat carbohydrates. There's many, many reasons I've got listed, but again, I want to keep this short and move along. Today's message is long-term consistency over short-term perfection. And this can go along the lines of just thinking about diet in the short term in general. Really what we want to think about is doing something sustainable and being as consistent, not perfect. Perfect would be great though, but maybe that's not realistic. But being as consistent as we can over time and really never ending with this. After all, you are just a reflection of what you do. So in this challenge, if you end up losing a lot of body fat, which I really hope you do, and you will if you follow everything, that will only stay if you keep up those habits. Okay, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be as diligent as you are in this challenge, although I'm going to highly encourage it. But in generality, keeping up with those habits that got you to where you are, that got you to the fat loss that you experienced. Long term, always thinking long term, always thinking long term. Okay, long term consistency over short term perfection. Okay, positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.